Hey guys, Romeo Hertz here today to give you another chapter of Naruto review, Naruto 642 review. Um, Ultimately, this was a really good chapter. That I didn't find there to be any complaints. Um, Nothing that sticks out. It was an action chapter. No, I mean, yeah, even Obito was solid. Um, He didn't say really too much that really got me annoyed, but let's go into it and let's analyze it. So we start off with it's pretty much after the fact of the man. I don't know what the technique was called, but basically Obito is surrounded by Amaterasu flames, and basically his I don't even know what to call it. Those the Biju they're not Biju balls, but that's what they look like. So basically the Biju balls, if you remember from last chapter, when they're not exactly connected to Obito physically, so when Tobirama teleported Obito, his black balls, black Biju bonds were still where he had left them, and then they return to him just now. And seemingly what they do is they pull apart the Amaterasu flames from Obito, and Obito seems to have this kind of chakra, no, not chakra, it seems like part of his body mass, his his kind of the wing kind of cloak that was near the bottom of his legs that descended from his body. That also seemed to be helping to push away the Amaterasu flames. I don't really know how that works because, I mean, it's blaze release. I mean, it's Amaterasu. I mean, shouldn't these balls in fact be catching fire? I mean, Amaterasu burns flame itself. I don't quite understand the mechanics of these black balls. I don't understand why they're so effective. But it manages to pull it apart, and Obito comes out of it unscathed. In fact, during when the balls are being pulled apart, it seems like he's healing from the wound, which makes sense. I mean, he's the Jubi Chinchuriki. We've seen Naruto heal from worse wounds, to be fair, so it's not surprising that he has such high regeneration. And basically the Kage's remark that it's going to be really hard to defeat Obito. They just don't. It's not going to be a simple we can wear him down, a battle of attrition. It seems to be they're going to have to go in ham, like completely, unbelievably. Just I don't know what they're going to do, but well, we got an inkling. But basically, when Minato, when Tobirama looks at Minato, he notices that Minato's arm hasn't regrown, and that it should be regenerating. And Obito remarks that, well, it's not. These black balls aren't simple ninjutsu. This is the power of the shinobi ancestors. Common sense and logic no longer apply to me. And I think this is maybe an overstatement, but I think he's just saying that. I mean, Tobirama remarks that it's a yin-yang release, white chakra, black chakra, which makes sense. That's kind of what a Biju Dama is. But he's saying that the jutsu is capable of nullifying all other jutsus. Now this is actually kind of what Izanagi does. If you remember Izanagi, it makes whatever you want to happen, and whatever you don't want to happen, it doesn't happen. And it kind of bends the laws of the universe, so you do what you want, and anything you don't want to happen won't happen. But it's condensed to these black balls, and I think that's pretty much what Yin Yang release does. But because Edo Tensei uses is essentially a form of ninjutsu, I think what's happening is these black orbs break and damage the complexities of ninjutsu because they're so basic in their form, they're so pure. So because in Ido Tensei, remember, it's not just chakra, it is a ninjutsu. It's damaging the technique, so you won't resurrect if you're fully destroyed, which is partly a problem because if you remember, Toby, no, maybe it's just different, maybe because he has more control over it, but when Obito first appeared, half of Tobirama's body on his right side disappeared, and then he also took out the third Hokage. I don't understand why the technique's abilities would be different when he's in full control, as opposed to not full control. I don't see what the difference between the two forms are, but we're getting to see a bit of it now. But essentially, sorry, I zoomed out for a second. But essentially, Naruto and Sasuke realized that, you know, we're gonna have to do it at a higher level if we want to damage him enough that we can debilitate him enough to make an actual effect. The problem here is that when Naruto tries to go into his full Kyuubi form again, he runs out of chakra straight away, which is mismanagement on his part. He should be more understanding to his own chakra reserves, and the Kurama has to make more. So while that's going on, he's gonna have to use senjutsu, sage mode, or just his normal chakra. But the thing is, Gamaken uses a kind of a water jutsu. It seems like he calls it water candy, which is kind of like this. Yeah, I suppose it is like a kind of sweet, not sweet, but sticky kind of water technique. And Gamma, it's time for his summoning's going to end soon, because if you remember, summoning's to summon a creature into. Actually, I kind of don't really understand too much, but in part 1, part 2 seemed a bit different, but in part 1, the amount of chakra you used to summon a creature meant that was how long they could stay in the world for. But I thought that had disappeared in part 2 when you had the pain arc where the toads could just come into the world. Or maybe that was because, well, maybe that was a limited summon as well, I'm not sure. But anyway, he has to go. But they noticed that, and this is interesting, Obito's shield that he used to block the sticky water jelly thing, the water candy technique, can't seem to get rid of. Usually it will just dispel this jutsu, get rid of it, but it seems that he has to wait for it to slide off of his what's it called, the black chakra, the yin yang chakra. Yeah, we'll just call it the yin yang chakra balls. And actually, Minato tries to buy time because he wants to analyze this jutsu. So basically, he starts talking to Obito, and Obito just, you know, he asks, "Why have you become like this?" And Obito is just like, "Well, there's just no point talking about it now. You weren't there. You weren't there. But because you were Hokage, it was easier for me to let my dream die." I'm not sure about this comment because it seems kind of contradictory to what he's trying to. I don't know what Obito wants anymore. At first, I thought he wanted the infinite Tsukiyomi, which I don't know why he's not doing that. Actually, why can't he do it right now? He's got the Sharingan. He's got the Jubi he's the Jubi Jinchuriki. Why isn't he activating it? Does something else need to be done? What other condition hasn't been met? But I don't really understand what Obito's about so much anymore. but basically Minato, which is good. I like this because I was worried that Kishimoto would not expand on it, but Minato looks back and he sees that he didn't recognize that Obito was Obito. But I think this is a bit of a problem, because the way I see it is Minato, even though before this Shinobi World War arc, Minato was hailed as a genius. He was incredibly intelligent. Now he's being played as not so much intelligent. When he first encountered Obito in his fight against him, where he took the Kyuubi, he thought his abilities and powers were that of Madara Uchiha. There's no way, you know, if that shows how much of a retcon it is, and why I personally think Kishimoto wrote Toby to be Madara, but then later on changed his mind when he introduced Madara. Because even he had Minato, this considered one of the smartest characters in the series, calculate that he was Madara. So I don't think Minato could really blame himself for this, because let's face it, even us today, we still can't really believe that Obito was so strong within a space of a year to be able to top Minato. Even with Sage Chakra, his skills wouldn't be developed enough to handle Minato. So kind of weird. But you know, Obito starts talking smack, and to be honest, it's reasonable, because you know, as stated before, Obito pretty much just says that you're a pathetic Hokage because you couldn't protect your own family, your own pupil killed you. This is in fact something similar to what Nagato was saying to Naruto during their fight. But they're still analysing the technique. They still understand what's going on. And basically Naruto's angry, and he's going to, you know, he's been doing this a lot with Obito, where Obito says some shit, Naruto gets angry, and then Naruto does a technique which kind of hurts Obito, but it's never long lasting. Anyway, Tobirama grabs Naruto, they both disappear and reappear above Obito, and Naruto hits him with a Rasengan, and it seems to work, which is confusing because, you know, he's taken so many techniques and he just shrugs them off. And Tobirama, because you remember Tobirama is a sensei, he detects that ninjutsu doesn't work, but senjutsu works. This makes sense because if you remember when Naruto was trying to understand the Jubi, he went into Sage mode to try and understand it because he couldn't sense it through his Kyuubi cloak, and it was foreshadowed. I wouldn't say foreshadowed, but it links. It links that Sage Arts would work because the Jubi is nature itself. If you remember, chakra is a fusion of spiritual energy and physical energy. And Sage mode is taken from the very earth itself, the very planet itself. So it makes sense that it would affect. Well, it makes sense to an extent. It still needs to be elaborated. A lot of this needs to be elaborated on. It still needs a lot more analysis for me for it to work. But the last panel is an interesting panel, and one I think everyone in the fandom was worried about, was what was going on with the second half of the Kyuubi's chakra. Was it still in the Death God, or was it in Minato? We saw that Minato must have had it because he had the Kyuubi cloak, but then we now see that in fact the Kyuubi, the second half of the Kyuubi is still there. What's going to happen? I don't know. What other jutsus could it possibly have? But if you remember, the Kyuubi was said to create tornadoes with a single swipe of its tail, so on and so forth. So, but its chakra was split. In fact, when its chakra split, the Kyuubi was almost a third of its original size. So what happens when Minato gives back that power to Naruto? Will he get the full whack? But even still, what's going to happen? Because from what we can tell, Kyuubi, well, in fact, we haven't seen if a Biju Dama would work against the new Obito. So that's interesting. But it's really interesting to see the Kyuubi's other half Um, it's going to be an interesting, well, not next week because Jump is on hiatus unless the chapters come out early. But yeah, it was a really great chapter. I really enjoyed it. Great chapter. Well, it was great in comparison to the last few months that we've had. Ever since chapter 600, man, things have been really bad. But I think I wouldn't say Kishimoto is back on track, but he's more focused. I would like to know what Killer B is doing. Killer B isn't my favourite character, but he is one of the most competent ninjas, competent high-class ninjas in the Naruto series, and as the Eight Tails Jinchuriki, I would expect him to be, considering how knowledgeable the Hachibi is, and Killer B's own experiences and skills, I'd expect him to be fighting in this battle. I really would expect him to be fighting in this battle. I think he's at the, I mean, he blitzed Sasuke, for fuck's sake. I mean, he should be involved. I don't know why he's not. I hope Kishimoto picks up on that and utilizes him, because Killer B, in fact, is at his best when he's going against a single individual. He's so skillful. And I hope to see more of him. But again, it's really about how Kishimoto manages his characters. He's got a lot of characters on his plate, and he just has to figure out how to use them. But yeah, good chapter. It's a shame that, what is it, Golden Week next? I don't think so. I don't know, but it's a shame that we're not going to get a chapter next week because things were getting really tight. But you know, great chapter. I mean, this was fun. It was really great. It was really great. Again, great, that word. It was good. It was a good chapter. I enjoyed it. Yeah, so until next time, guys, Romeo Hertz here. Naruto chapter 642 review called Breakthrough. See you again next week.